Ezekiel 25:17.
Hey, welcome to UFO News Report number 21. A bit of a different intro this time around because I had the whole Hynek story in the back of my mind because I've had a lot of good dialogue with folks regarding that, especially those that actually went out to Netflix and checked out the documentary. And for some reason, during the last couple of days, that scene in Pulp Fiction with Samuel L. Jackson just came to mind and I had to play it. I had to play it for you guys. I tell you all the time, this is not your usual UFO show. But if you've seen this documentary or you've at least read up on what's happening with Hynek today, then you know where I'm coming from. You might even need to have some reference here regarding Pulp Fiction and when that actually happened in the movie. But there you go, there's another movie for you to watch. That definitely is not one you want to watch around the kiddos. Just putting that disclaimer there. Don't blame me if you do. So for this episode, we actually have two articles. One is coming from down under in Australia, as you can see within the show title. The other is coming from rollingstone.com, and there's an article there about a book that was released in June. The subject of the book is Dr. Hynek. And if you know about ufology, you know that Dr. Hynek is often referred to as the father, quote-unquote, of modern ufology. Dr. Hynek is also credited with one of the first scientists to join the Air Force in their early public endeavors to define what a UFO was, or what people were seeing. Of course, we know that early on, Dr. Hynek felt that this was a fad, and that the reports were coming for individuals that were, quote-unquote, not credible. And listen, we have a whole episode on that, so you can look through the little archive here and you'll find it. Check it out. We talked about it before. The story at hand today is that this book, which was written by Mark O'Connell, is kind of like a biography which is regarding the UFO phenomena and also Dr. Hynek. There are a few fascinating facts in the article, and I guarantee you that in the book there's a whole lot more. The Rolling Stone article, the name of it is Close Encounters, Why UFOs Are Having a Moment. And if you recall the story of Dr. Hynek, he started out as a flat-out skeptic. And eventually he came around to believe that there was just no way that all of these stories, that he could not just relate them to individuals not being credible. So while he never really just came out and say, UFOs are a real deal, there's ETs. He did make several statements, basically saying that science cannot turn away from the subject matter because scientists had a duty to fulfill. One fascinating fact that was in this article, which really interesting, is the fact that according to this author, Dr. Hynek was actually born a few days before the Earth passed through the tail of Halley's Comet back in 1910. Dr. Hynek, when he passed away in 1986, was actually a few months after the passing of Halley's Comet. So now what's fascinating about that is that Halley's Comet has a range of between 74 and 79 years between when you see it. And that's amazing, right? The guy just happens to be born right before Halley's Comet pops into the sky, and he dies when it returns. The other great fact was in this article, and I've got it, as always, I'm looking out for you guys. I've got the article link in the description. The other fascinating fact, which I myself did not know because it was a long time ago that I saw this movie, but Dr. Hynek was actually fascinated by the idea that Steven Spielberg's movie in '77, Close Encounters of a Third Kind, was actually based on his work. Well, not entirely, but some of it. After contacting Spielberg about the film, Dr. Hynek actually ended up with a cameo on the film. And I don't know about you, but this weekend I'm going to watch the film again just so I can see Hynek in it. So kudos to Spielberg. Anyway, the article is fascinating. You know, here we are. The guy died about 30 some odd years ago, and we're still rehashing Dr. Hynek's story and what he meant to ufology and what he's going to mean to ufology in the future. So I don't know about the book. I haven't seen any ratings on it. I know it's available now. I did see it listed in Amazon and the Barnes & Noble website. Haven't really looked at any ratings, but from the sounds of it, there's a lot of good inside information regarding Dr. Hynek's life. And if you're a person that likes to read, this might be the book for you, kind of bring you up to speed on a modern biography on Dr. Hynek. So before we get to the next story, I want to invite you guys to visit UFO Buster Radio on Patreon. The reason we're doing this is because we have big plans, and you guys are my patrons. Visit UFO Buster Radio on Patreon. You can support the podcast that way, but you can also support it by sharing, liking, and spreading the word to the people that you know about some crazy guy named Manny Moonraker and his take on ufology. So before we go on to the next article, I also want to say that I want to thank everyone that actually responded to the last episode regarding Romanek. And I had some really good conversation, especially from YouTube with Earl. Earl saw a lot of things that I saw in the documentary. As a matter of fact, after he saw the documentary, he said that he went and did some research on it. Earl, I saw some of the same things you mentioned in the documentary, but I don't want to give any spoilers. I'll leave it up to the folks to look at it. But even Earl said it was an interesting documentary, and the information in it, if it turns out that Romanek actually did what he's accused of, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for people in general, not just for ufology. And the other thing I was thinking about today is there are sick people in every walk of life. There are people who are sick and they need help, and he might just be one of them. The problem that we have is that we can't separate the two. We can't separate the person from the experiences. But if you look at the documentary, there are clues in some of the things that he said. And of course, like I said before, these aren't reenactments. These are actual video footage that he shot most of, or someone was interviewing him. But there are clues in there that kind of hints to what's happening right now. And that may be that we're looking at this after the fact, and so we're finding these clues. They may have meant nothing at the time. But check it out. Let me know what you think. I'm open to the conversation. The next story is coming out of Down Under in Australia. That actually sounded pretty good. So the article says that there is a secret dossier that's being hushed up because the EU has a law that's going to keep people from receiving UFO sighting information that's reported by pilots. So what we have here in this article is that it's telling us that airline employees have actually reported a number of sightings which are unexplainable to the Civil Aviation Authority, and this happens every year. Apparently the Sun reports that the MOD closed its UFO desk in 2009. The Civil Aviation Authority is still taking UFO reports and keeping files on the incidents involving civilian aircrew. The problem is that they found a way to keep the public from getting their eyes or their grubby little hands on these reports, specifically reports from 2011 to present. Now, normally, as you've seen in the past, people have been able to submit Freedom of Information Act requests in order to obtain government files. It turns out the CIA is now quoting a piece of European legislation from 2014 that actually blocks records of occurrences which are related to UFO sightings. The CIA states occurrence information can only be used for the purpose of maintaining or improving aviation safety, and the release of occurrence information to the general public or the media, including in response to a Freedom of Information Act request, is not permitted. However, if you require occurrence information for the purpose of maintaining and improving aviation safety, you are able to make an application to the CAA. The only problem with this is, I would think that if you have, let's say, 1,000 reports from your aviation crew that there are strange things flying in the sky around their airplane, I would think that that would be a safety concern. So I guess if you want to know about these UFOs that are hanging around these airlines being reported by individuals that work for the airlines, you need to write it so that you're showing that you have concern not for the UFOs that are coming out of 4.2 far, but you're concerned for the people on the airplane and the people that work for the company. It doesn't seem to me that it would be so hard to do that, because the fact of the matter is, the reason why we research UFOs is because we have concerns about safety and what's flying over our skies. So there you go. You have about 6 years of information that's not being released, that's of UFO reports from employees of airlines. So you guys in Australia, you guys just got to deal with it. You're not going to get any information. I mean, someone's going to have to take it to the highest court in Australia to say that maybe this particular part of that law is being misinterpreted and used for other reasons, aside from it being about safety and the protection of those that are working for the airlines. The article did say that a lot of this is being done to protect pilots from ridicule or any harm that might come to them because they're reporting UFOs. Listen, that is so 1940. Get over it. There isn't a single person out there that doesn't know that there's something weird up in the sky. There's a bunch of UFOs. And if you're going to sit there and say that the people who are in the air all the time are not seeing anything of value, you need your head examined. So screw the law. It's nonsense. We don't need it. Give us the information. We want to know what these people are seeing. And some of the diagrams that I've seen in this article, which of course is linked in the description, they're seeing more than just UFOs. They're seeing what you might consider to be either passengers or pilots of these other crafts. So there might be a more sinister reason as to why these are being kept secret. So that is UFO report number 21. I thank you for listening. We will be back on Sunday with a special interview, so keep your eyes and ears open for those notifications, because we're going back to Utah and we're going to talk to Mrs. Butterfield, and we're going to get a little extra scoop on that 1947 Utah incident, and I hope you don't miss it. Ciao.